Hey, what's going on, guys? It's been a while. It's been a minute. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to the first stream, actually, the first football stream we're gonna have on this YouTube channel. Hopefully, more to come in the future, and hopefully, we can bring up more content and we can do more content like this because I do like to do live streams and you know talk more about football. I haven't really had the time to sit down and really have you know, time to make YouTube videos actually on topics that, are very important. And I think yesterday, to be honest, I do think yesterday was a um, very big day in the world of football. I think for United, for Spurs as well. Spurs winning their first title in what, 17, 20 years. I think it's a um, big day for Spurs and around like a horrible day for Manchester United. I think if you're a Manchester United fan, I mean, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. FGH is saying wrong title. Let me check that real quick. It's been a while since I've hopped on stream, so I do have some mistakes here and there. All right, good point actually. I didn't spell Europa League correctly. Thank you for correcting me in chat. I do appreciate that, FGH. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment sections as we go through today's discussions. We have a lot to get through. I'll try and keep, this stream a little bit short. We're not trying to go too long. We're just gonna have a quick little discussion about Manchester United. So we're gonna start with where, everything we're gonna start with yesterday. I think I watched the match, it was a match. It was a boring match. I think it's fair to say. Not if you're not supporting any of the teams, it's a boring match. It's a match where two teams of horrible quality, to be very honest with you, two teams of horrible quality coming together and producing a snooze fest of a match. But it was interesting to see how Manchester United approached this game, and it was concerning, I think, looking at the future for the club, how they approach this team. First of all, we're going to talk about the lineup. I think I'm going to switch the screen now. Um, Talking about the lineup, we're going to talk about the lineup for this game. The starting lineup, Ruben Amorim. Let's forget about Tottenham Hotspur because I think Tottenham Hotspur put up the best lineup they could have put up, and I think props to Ange in this game. If you watch the game, it was a different Spurs team. It was a different Spurs system. They came into the game with the mind of winning this game by any means necessary. And it seemed like Ruben Amorim didn't get that. It seemed like Ruben Amorim didn't realize that he had to win this game by any means necessary. And it's kind of concerning, it is kind of concerning. Is he the right man for the job of Manchester United? I think so. I'd like to think so. I think he's got a system that could work when the players do get together. But I mean, this lineup was weird. I think Luke Shaw starting this game probably was not the best option. I think Delo was good enough to come onto the pitch in the 85th minute. I think one thing I always say is if a player is good enough to be on the bench, the player is, good enough or fit enough to start. And I think Delo being on the bench for this match was a little bit, confusing. I believe Ugarte was on the bench. He didn't even get a single minute on the field. I mean, it was a little bit concerning. Mason Mount playing this game was the most confusing out of the inclusions in the game. I think Mason Mount was very, very. It was a weird pick. It was a very weird pick because he came back from injury, scored a little bit of 1, 2, 3 goals, but I don't think he deserved to start in this Europa Europa League game. And I think maybe Bruno Fernandes and Ahmad would have worked well, and a Casemiro and Ugarte would have been decent in the midfield. And I think a backline of Euro, Mazraoui, and Maguire I think would have been better than Euro, Maguire, and Luke Shaw. Um, Luke Shaw, I think, doesn't deserve to start this game. I feel very bad for players like Delo. I think Delo was injured, so I can't really blame him that much. But I feel bad for players like Delo. I feel bad for players like even Lindelof to a certain extent. I think these players would have been good, would have been good to have in the team in such a big and important game for Manchester United. And as I said, it doesn't look like Ruben Amorim got the brief that this was a must-win game for Manchester United. So I do think, looking at it from a analysis point of view, um, Ruben Amorim got the selection wrong coming into this game. The players, on the other hand, I'm focusing more on Manchester United because I think Tottenham Hotspur, if they lost this game, everyone was just gonna be like, they're not used to winning trophies, so um, this is not gonna be a surprise for them if they lost the Europa League. But I think with Manchester United, it was such a season defining Europa League. Same thing with Tottenham Hotspur, don't get me wrong. It was such a season defining Europa League game, and it was such a season defining game that you would have expected a lot more from the players that were put onto the field. I think Andre Onana, I don't really want to talk about Andre Onana. I think for a goalkeeper, he has come into this team, and I think he's a decent goalkeeper. I think Onana is a decent goalkeeper, but the pressure has gotten to him. He has received a whole lot of criticism in Manchester United, and I think he's not being able to handle that. Although he does do a lot of talking, I don't think he's been able to handle that, and we saw that yesterday. Horrendous save from Onana. I think many basic, goalkeepers would probably palm that away, get a fingertip or two to it, and he was stood still, statue, as Mark Goldbridge would say, and yeah, I do think he could have saved that ball a lot. But Luke Shaw, I mean, I think the ball came off Luke Shaw. He also looked a little bit shaky. And as I said before, it doesn't seem fair to players like I'll get to your comments, FGH. I'll get to your comment. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll definitely get to your comments. But I want to just preface the things that I want to talk about in today's stream. But let me know what you think in the comment section. I'll definitely get back and answer those questions. But yes, as I was saying, Luke Shaw, I think it's very unfair to players like, as I said, Lindelof. I think players like Delo as well, that they didn't get to play this game. I think it's very unfair to those players who have been available. They have been available throughout the season, and they have, put in a shift when it comes to um putting on a Manchester United shirt. Players like Luke Shaw and players like Luke Shaw and Mason Mount have been, you know, injured for most of the season. So to think that these players have been picked for a Europa League final where players like Delo, players like Lindelof, players like Alejandro Garnacho have been available and been playing in these Europa League games and have actually put on a Manchester United shirt. And I'm not blaming these players for for being injured. It's not their fault in any way, shape, or form. It's not their fault at all. It's it's a fault of they're just not fit enough. And I think as a manager, you should be looking at that and being like, okay, these players are definitely not fit enough, and I don't think it would be fair to reward such players in a match of such magnitude, if that makes sense. When players like Alejandro Garnacho and the low Lindelof have been available. So again, I do think the lineup was a little bit wrong. Bruno Fernandes. I think I've said this before. I've had conversations with um some of my friends who are Manchester United fans about Bruno Fernandes, and I think they are confused. I think they are confused with how good Bruno Fernandes actually is. I think they look at Bruno Fernandes and they see a player that is, unfortunately in a bad team. But I don't see it like that. I see it as Bruno Fernandes is just the best out of the bad bunch in Manchester United. He is just the best out of the bad bunch in Manchester United. That doesn't make Bruno Fernandes a world class player. If you watched Bruno Fernandes yesterday, it shows him as a 7.5 yesterday, basically saying, he was one of the best players on the pitch yesterday for Manchester United. That is false. If you go back and watch the um if you go back and watch the mistake leading to the goal, it was Bruno Fernandes trying to hit a very, very, difficult pass, and he loses the ball, and one thing led to another, and Tottenham Hotspur got the goal. And you look at that and you think, this is the captain of the football club. He's not supposed to be making these type of mistakes. He's supposed to be the one leading players, to be making better decisions. But he does go on to make bad decisions. And it's very telling. It's very telling when your captain, the one that's supposed to be, you know, leading the front line, the one that's supposed to be um leading the team to success, making the right decisions. You look at captains like Human Son. You look at captains like um look at Modric. You look at captains like Virgil van Dijk. These are players that are seen in the team as maestros. They're seen in the team as orchestrators. They are the leaders of the team, not mainly, not just because they have a team leader spirit, but they they have, they try their very best not to make mistakes. They hardly make mistakes. You hardly see Virgil van Dijk making a mistake that leads to goal. And that fills that fills the team with confidence because they look at Virgil van Dijk not making mistakes and you know, they feel forced to also not make a mistake. Because if the leader is not doing it, it doesn't give you an opportunity to do it. But you look at players like Bruno Fernandes, where they have opportunities to make 5 yard passes, but they're trying to look for the special hero flair ball over the top, and it doesn't make any sort of of sense. It doesn't make any sort of sense for a player of that, importance or that significance to be playing like he plays. Yes, some might say without Bruno, Manchester United probably get relegated this season. I, half and half agree with that. But this is Manchester United with Bruno. How bad would they be without Bruno? Like, if you actually think about it, this is what Manchester United are with Bruno Fernandes. How bad do you think Manchester United probably would be without Bruno Fernandes? You know? So it's a matter of I think United fans are in a situation where they're taking the lesser of two evils. You know, Manchester United is bad, but at least we have Bruno Fernandes. And I think if you're a Manchester United fan, which I am obviously not, but if I'm talking from a neutral perspective, I'm trying to put myself in a Manchester United fan shoes, and I think if I was supporting this club, I think you know the players of the quality of Bruno Fernandes, I think would not be the players I'd be looking at for you know I would be looking at to push the team to new heights. I really do think so. So Bruno Fernandes, I think, really, really disappointing. I think ever since the Saudi links have come in for Bruno Fernandes, he has just been He has just been mediocre, and that's very unfortunate to see from him. Let's move to Spurs. I think we'll come to the Garnacho. As I'm seeing all your comments in the live chats, I'll definitely get to those questions and then we'll answer them and have more conversations in the chat. Moving to Tottenham, I think props to Ange Postecoglou. He changed his system. I can guarantee you that if Ange went into this game with the mindset of playing the way he normally plays in the Premier League, I think Spurs get beat in this game. And I do believe that that is what Ruben Amorim probably thought was going to happen with um, with Spurs today. Sorry, with Spurs yesterday, because I think he looked at the situation and probably thought, Spurs were going to play a high line and they're going to get in behind. But Spurs didn't play a high line. Spurs packed the bus and they got a very lucky goal. And that's how finals are. You have to be switched on from minute 1 to minute 90 to make sure you don't make any mistake that may cost you the game. And Manchester United players were not switched on, and Tottenham Hotspur took advantage of that opportunity. And I think it's telling. It's really telling what's going on, SK. Hope you're doing good in chat. But it's really telling. Spurs looked more ready. They looked the most ready team out of the two. Spurs looked like they actually wanted to win the match. And as I said, Ange Postecoglou actually, you know, changed up his system and did everything. I think he said it in his interview. He did everything he could to win the game today. Not today, yesterday. So I mean, don't really have a lot to talk about Spurs because I think every player did their job from Vicario to Solanke. Every single player did their job. I mean, Van der Veen with that clearance off the line, beautiful. Vicario with that last minute save, beautiful. Every single player for Tottenham Hotspur were on it today. I keep saying today, yesterday. Every single player in Tottenham Hotspur's team were on it yesterday. So I think yeah, they definitely were the better team, and it's looking sad for Manchester United. We're gonna talk about this Garnacho situation because I really think it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but I do want to get to some of your comments the in the chat. So, wrong title, FGH. All right. So, FGH says, is is the Europa League win the start of a new era or one of success in relation to Tottenham Hotspur? I think it gives them a platform. I think it gives Tottenham Hotspur a platform to boost themselves next season. Winning the Europa League, you're gonna get reward monetary reward when you win the Europa League, and you're gonna get an influx of cash for qualifying for the Champions League as well and playing Champions League matches. TV deals, they're gonna be on the TV a lot more because you're playing Champions League football. You know, stadium seats. You're gonna get more, fans in the stadium because you're gonna be playing Champions League football against big teams. And I think revenue-wise, this is gonna be very big for Tottenham. And if they can get in the right players, I remember I've made a chat. I believe I have made a video on what the problem is with Tottenham Hotspur this season. Earlier, I think last year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I made a video about what the problem was with Tottenham, and I talked about Daniel Levy, and I talked about the manager. And when I was talking about Daniel Levy, I mentioned that he has not invested money correctly into the squad. I think he has, I don't want to say misused, but I think he has inefficiently used funds um, that have come into the club. The sale of Harry Kane, you would have expected, two or three experienced players coming into the squad. They went in, I mean Solanke and Madison weren't two bad players coming into the club, but you'd expect a little bit more, players with a little bit more pedigree coming into the club. But they went on. They got Madison. They got Solanke coming in, and I think they got. I mean, I don't think Van der Ven. I don't remember Van der Ven. I don't. I'll have to go check the signings that they made after Tottenham after Harry Kane left. But I think it wasn't that much. It wasn't crazy signings that Tottenham Hotspur made that would have really improved the club in general. So I think if Daniel Levy can, really take this opportunity and invest better into the squad and get Tottenham Hotspur the players that they need to get themselves into, a good position. I think Tottenham Hotspur could do better with a more furnished squad in terms of quality on the bench. I think with what hurt Tottenham Hotspur this season was a lot of injuries. I think Spurs had a whole lot of injuries, and Postecoglou wasn't able to get the best out of the quality that he had on the bench. So I think if Daniel Levy can invest properly with um, the revenue that Spurs are going to generate from getting into this Champions League, I think, yeah, it could be, as you said, FGH, it could be a start of a new era. Caleb Bain, I don't even know who we are anymore. Just a brand of football club. I think this is in relation to Manchester United. They have thrown money at every problem and somehow made it worse. I mean, you would have to throw money at the problem. I think it's naive to say, you know, they've thrown money at the problem, or maybe I think maybe what you're trying to say is I might be wrong on that, but what interpret from what you're trying to say is, the throwing money at the problem hasn't worked. I think with Manchester United they have wrongly, thrown money at the problem, and what I mean by that is they have spent money. They've spent stupid amount of money to fix the problem in the wrong ways. I mean, 80 million pounds for Anthony, and Anthony's probably going to be leaving for at most maybe 40 million next season. You know, they didn't get any single benefit or any single profit from spending that amount of money on Anthony. Um, 70 plus million on Rasmus Hoyland. That's a whole lot of, money being thrown away. I don't even know if they're going to be able to sell him. Um, Letting David De Gea go on a free and spending 60 million, 40, I think 60-40 million on Andre Onana, and Onana coming in and not, doing anything. There has been a lot of money being spent. A lot of money has been spent, as you said, on Manchester United, but I think it's the problem is not the money being spent, is that the money has been spent wrongly. I mean, they might as well have gotten the money and flushed it down the toilets. The amount of money they spent, I think probably, past a billion at this point. They might as well have just got that shit down and put that, sorry for swearing, but got that down and just flushed it down the toilet. Honestly. So I do understand where you're coming from, Caleb Bain. Mateus Cunha, decent, but United need leaders, not just flair. I think Mateus Cunha could do that. I think Cunha could come in and be a leader. I think Cunha could come in and be um a leader. He has that mentality, I think, to come in and be a leader. But I think my issue with Mateus Cunha would be, is he quality enough to get United to where they need to be? That's my question. Is Mateus Cunha quality enough to get Manchester United to where they need to be? That's where I think, that's where I think. Sorry, I'm trying to check something on streams. I think stream was going a little bit. All right, I think we're good. All right. So yeah, I don't think Mateus Cunha is the quality of player that's gonna get United back to the top. But maybe, Manchester United don't want to go back to the top. Maybe they just want to be a stable team that is in the top six, the top 10, and not really doing anything. You never know. That could be their plan. That really could be their plan. Um, Malfoy, Draco's Malfoy says, "You don't throw a kid like Garnacho under the bus. You guide him." All right, good segue to talk about the Garnacho Amarim comments. I'll come back to the rest of the comments because I do think apart from yeah, I think the rest of the comments are talking about Garnacho. So I'm just gonna move on to the Garnacho Ruben Amarim thing, and then we'll talk about that later, and then maybe we'll just wrap it up. As I said, I'm trying not to make this too long of a stream. Maybe we'll just talk about a little bit of Garnacho. We'll talk about what's next for Manchester United, and maybe yeah, we'll just wrap it up. Don't want to make this too long of a stream. So yesterday, after the match, I'm sure you guys have probably seen this on online yesterday and today as well. Garnacho says, "Onto the final, I played every round helping the team. Then the final arrives and I play 20 minutes. I don't know. The final, the season, the whole situation of the club. I will try to enjoy the summer and then we will see what happened." There is more to this comment, which I'm obviously not going to read because it has a little bit of graphic language, but it's it's from a player that it's from a player that I believe has. I'm a big fan of Ganacho. I think I really when he was coming up from the Manchester United academy, I really wanted Real Madrid to sign him and he become an understudy to Vinicius Jr. because I think he could have learned a lot from Vinicius Jr. Vinicius could, when he does end up leaving the club, will have a player who is similar in style of play. I think he has a lot of talent, a lot of technical ability, and I think he's going to be one of the best players in the world by the time he's like 25. He still has a lot of time to go. I think he's like 21, Garnacho. This is frustration, as every human being feels, in an aspect, in every aspect in their life. You're gonna get frustrated when things don't go your way. But I have seen comments on this with people talking about Garnacho saying that he shouldn't be saying stuff like that. He's not disciplined. He hasn't even had a good season. Who does he think he is? Mason Mount has been injured for give or take 70% of the season for Manchester United. The player that started over Garnacho this season, let's have a look at Mason Mount's stats this season. All right? Let's have a look at Mason Mount's stats for this season. Mason Mount this season no, season. Mason Mount this season has played 26 games and scored 3 goals. 1 in the Premier League and 2 in the Europa League. 2 of those goals coming against Athletic Bilbao in the second leg where Bilbao had given up. 1 goal in the Premier League, 2 goals in the Europa League. Now let's go to the player that was benched in his position. Let's see what Garnacho has done this season for Manchester United. 11 goals and 10 assists. It's nothing crazy. It really is nothing crazy. 6 goals in the Premier League, 2 assists in the Premier League, 1 goal in the Europa League, and 4 assists in the Premier League. This is a player that has played 58 games, more than double the amount that Mason Mount has played for Manchester United this season alone. This is a player that has faced criticism. This is a player that has faced abuse. This is a player that has faced, people calling him names because he has made some mistakes. Keep in mind, this is a 20-year-old player. Gonna turn 21 this year, July. This is a 20-year-old player who still has a lot of time ahead of him to improve. Ronaldo at 20 was not, the finished product. I mean, Rafinha at 20 probably wasn't the finished product I think people look at Lamine Yamal and think everyone at 20, even Vinicius at 20 was not that good. He was okay, but he was not that good. I think people look at Lamine Yamal, people look at young players like um, maybe Ethan and Waneri coming up, and they they want all their 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old players to be like a Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal is a talent that comes once every like 100 years or something like that. That's how rare his type of talent is. Not every 20-year-old is going to be the finished product. Not every 20-year-old is going to start in a team. So keep in mind, this is a 20-year-old player who is showing the potential of becoming a world-class player. This is a player that is, since his addition to Manchester United, since he started becoming a regular starter at Manchester United, he is averaging 10 goals a season. This is assuming he was 18 in 2023-2024 season, and assuming he was 19 in 2023-2024 season, and 2024-2025 season, he is 20. He got 10 goals and 5 assists last year, and he improved and got 11 goals and 10 assists this year. This is a 20-year-old, by the way. Might I just, preface that? This is a 20-year-old who has the ability and opportunity and space and time to develop and be a good player under the right system. And this is a player that Ruben Amorim intentionally decided to quote unquote throw him under the bus because agree with me or not, that is what Ruben Amorim basically did. You cannot tell me that Mason Mount, despite all the mistakes that Alejandro Garnacho made this season, you cannot tell me that Mason Mount deserves to play that final over Garnacho. Forget the fact that Mason Mount scored 2 goals or 3 goals or he was, on form on the way to the final. Let him come out from the bench. Garnacho has played every single game in the Europa League, I believe. Started every single game coming from the bench, playing games and important games, being a part of a team that has been winning. And now we get to the final and you're benching him for a player that has missed 50% at least of the season. And you expect the player not to retaliate. You expect the player to just take it on the chin and move on. I agree with what Garnacho said. I totally agree with what Garnacho said because he's frustrated. He sees this as an opportunity to do something for a club that he definitely loves. He doesn't have any hatred towards Manchester United. He definitely has a love for the club. He's literally from their academy. So he definitely has a love for the club. And to bench him in such an important game, I think that's where, you know, and bringing him in the 70th minute, not even in the second half, in the 70th minute, where the game was basically gone, feels very disrespectful to a player like Alejandro Garnacho. And I do think for his own, you know, career development, I think a career outside of Manchester United at the moment is definitely going to be good. I think Kobe Mainoo as well. I think Kobe Mainoo as well, having a career outside of Manchester United is definitely going to be more beneficial to him as compared to actually saying that um literally lost my train of thought. I literally just glanced to have a look at a message I got and I lost my train of thought. Well, yeah, I do think Garnacho and Mainoo definitely have a better career outside of Manchester United because it's not looking good at the club. Financially, it's not looking good. I think Garnacho is gone either way, by the way. Let me just preface that. I think with this statement that Garnacho made, he is gone. He is definitely gone. I think this is a player that I mean, yeah, this it's not gonna work out. It's not gonna work out for Garnacho in Manchester United, and it's just gonna be trepidatious grounds from here for Garnacho. I think if I'm his agent, if I'm Garnacho, I'm on the phone to my agent, trying to get a move out of the club because I really don't think it's gonna work. I really don't think it's gonna work out. Give me a second. I'm trying to get some information right now. In a second. All right. Sorry about the long pause, but yeah. Again, I think Garnacho definitely is gone. There is no coming back from this. I think even Ruben Amorim, I think he kind of basically slated Garnacho for what he said. So I do think he's gone. Let's get back to some of the comments. Um, Darren Feen, love Garnacho's fire, but you don't win anything without discipline. I think you're mistaking discipline with a want to do attitude. I think Garnacho is this is not Garnacho coming out to, you know, insult Ruben Amorim or say Ruben Amorim has been a bad manager. He's coming out to lay out his frustration because understandably so. A player, as I said, who has been available for Manchester United most of this season, majority of this season. I mean, how many matches have United played this season? He has been available majority of this season, and you decide to put him on the bench in such a big game to play a player that hasn't even played half of what Garnacho has played this season. I understand where you're coming from, Darren. I definitely understand where you're coming from, Darren. That you know Garnacho, the lack of discipline. But you said it yourself in literally your first sentence. Love Garnacho's fire. There is a fire in Garnacho that you do not just, put away because you want to play a player in the form. It doesn't matter if Mason Mount scored a series of hat trick. To be honest, I'm gonna say this, but to be honest, I don't think Ahmad should have started. I really don't think so. I really don't think that Ahmed should have started that game. And you probably think, you'll probably be like, that's a little bit far to say. But looking at players that have been available, unfortunately for Ahmed, he got injured. I'm not blaming, I think maybe I might be saying this in the wrong way, but I'm not blaming the players that got injured. I'm not blaming Mason Mount for getting injured. I'm not blaming Ahmad for getting injured. But they have been injured, unfortunately for them. And for a player like Garnacho, Ahmad has basically been injured throughout the season. Ahmed has missed 70% of the season, unfortunately, through injury, and you bench a player that has been available throughout the season for a player that has come back from injury just because he came back from injury and played well a few games. I'm at a place, he played crap in the final. Same with Mason Mount. Would Garnacho have played better in the final? I don't know. But I think football, and as a manager as well, football is a reward system game. You play well today, you have a history of playing well, you're most likely to start. It shouldn't really be based on form. It really shouldn't be based on who is playing well at the moment. Anyways, um, Spurs signing hungry players, United selling theirs. Who's really rebuilding? I think that's a good point. Um, United are going to have to sell some players. I think they are in financial ruin. It's very dangerous. They're on dangerous grounds financially. United are definitely on dangerous grounds financially, and they're gonna have to sell some players. They're gonna have to get some players out the door. Not not necessarily selling players for selling sake. They're gonna have to sell players to get money into the club because they are in financial ruin. It's gonna get. I don't know how worse it's gonna get, but it's looking like it's gonna get worse from here for Manchester United if they don't get some players in. So I think Garnacho is gone. I think. I mean, I don't think it's far fetched to say Manu is gone. I really don't think so. I really don't think it's crazy to say that Manu might be gone as well. I think Bruno might be gone. It's far fetched to say that, but I think Bruno might be gone. I think the offer coming in from Saudi indicates that Bruno might be gone. That's 120 million. That's 120 million that Manchester United could invest back into the club with. It's a lot of money. It's definitely a lot of money that they could get into the club. So I think, yeah, some players are definitely going. I think Rashford is gone. Anthony definitely gone. Garnacho is gone. Kobe Manu is gone. Yeah, I think so. And again, as I said, the Spurs, I don't really have a whole lot to talk about Spurs because they are the victors. They're the team that has won in today's game, and I think they just have to improve from here. I think Daniel Levy just has to improve from here. Daniel Levy just has to properly invest into the club with the funds that he has at the moment. That's why I don't really have much to say about Tottenham Hotspur. I think, um, as Vexara just said, still not convinced they can challenge the league. One trophy doesn't mean they've arrived. That's a good point. You know, if Tottenham Hotspur go into next season with the players that they've ended this season with, what's the chances that they're not in this situation next year? So they definitely have to invest back into the club with the funds that they have gotten. If Amarim's benching him over one bad game, that's poor man management, and I agree with you there. It might just not be it might not just be one game that has led to Ruben Amorim benching Garnacho for the Europa League final. It might have been a series of games. But to bench a player that has been readily available for a player that has not been readily available seems a little bit unfair. You know, it does seem a little bit unfair to Alejandro Garnacho. It's very, very, yeah. I do feel bad for him. I do feel bad for him. I mean, he seems like he really does seem like the only player that really was hurt with the loss. It really does. It really does. I'm trying to have to see if there's anything that um there's anything else to really really talk about. I think Amarim. Some might have said Amarim might leave. Maybe we'll watch this Goldbridge video and we'll wrap it up, react to this, and we'll wrap it up. But I think Amarim might. People are saying Amarim might walk. He might resign. I don't think he's gonna resign. I think he is in too deep at the moment to resign. He's gonna see it out. If he gets sacked, he gets sacked.
Ridiculousness where Ineos didn't know their arse from the elbow. Half the fan base wanted Ten Hag to stay. Half the fan base wanted him to go. That's wasted energy. So I would say to anyone who thinks that's worth investing your time in, it won't happen. He will be here next season. The anger will subside. Pre-season will come. Hope will build again. We've got to find a way back, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Amrin will be here next season. The bigger question is this going to work? Is this the beginning of the end? Because I think that what did happen last night, and there's always a tipping point, but what did happen last night is the fans like myself and many of you who want Amrim to do well and we back Amrim, I think we probably wake up this morning and we don't necessarily feel the same. Not that we're Amrim out, I just think we lost something last night. And I think he probably lost something with the players as well. I think it was such a bad performance.
I agree with that.
Tactically, selection-wise, and he got absolutely no intensity from that team. Now, you think about Sir Alex, and we weren't very good in the 99 final against Bayern, but we were always fighting. It was an ability thing.
I think that's one thing with the current Manchester United players that I have noticed. There is a lack of fight. It seems like they don't realize that they're playing for Manchester United. It seems like maybe they think they're playing for a mid-table team, or there doesn't seem to be an intensity to the pedigree of playing for a Manchester United team, a Manchester United club. It's very lackluster. It's very low intensity type of football you see with Manchester United. I mean, that clearance from Mickey van der Ven, over the line. I dare you to give me a player in Manchester United that could make that clearance. I don't think Maguire is getting there. I don't think Luke Shaw is getting there. I don't think Lindelof is getting there. I think maybe Mazraoui. Maybe Mazraoui gets there. Maybe Lenny Yoro gets there. But it's very difficult to see. And that's what separated the two teams. There was an effort with Tottenham Hotspur in that game. There was an intensity, a high level of intensity in that game against Tottenham Hotspur. You could see them, clearing the ball, putting effort into clearing the ball, putting effort into keeping possession, putting effort into winning 50-50s. And that's what won them the game. At the end of the day, that is what won them the game. And that's very basic. That's very, very basic things you would expect on a normal. That should be the bare minimum that you should expect from your players in a European final. That should be the bare minimum you would expect from your team in a European final. And I never saw any of that in the Manchester United side. Tottenham Hotspur looked more ready, more intense, and more willing to win that game than United. And I think that has been a problem for them when it comes to lack of intensity and physicality.
But we never stopped fighting. Like, the effort levels, the intensity, the determination was there. We were just struggling against a decent side. You look at United last night, tactically it was a joke. Selection-wise, it was horrific. But then intensity-wise and effort, it was appalling. So I think as a player, you're going to look at the manager this morning and go, he got a lot wrong. And as an individual, you've got to look at yourself and go, I didn't play well. But you've also got the excuse of going, look at what everyone's saying about the manager. He got it wrong. And that just starts to drop into the head.
That's, as I said earlier, start of the stream, I think Amorim really got the selection wrong. I think the players he selected, definitely not. Mason Mount is not an intensive player. Luke Shaw is not an intensive player. Maguire, he has a little bit of intensity, but how intense is he? You need to put players that are gonna fight for the ball. Look at Emmanuel Ugarte. He's an intensive, aggressive player. He's going to fight for the ball. He's going to go into 50-50s. Same with Alejandro Garnacho. Same with Diego Dalot as well. And I think when you look at that from a fan perspective, as Goldbridge said, you start to think, is he the man for the job? Is he the man that can actually take us to where you need to be as a Manchester United fan? And you start to doubt. You start to have a little bit of doubt. But I think maybe he just made a little bit of mistakes going into this game. But yeah, hopefully they can sort things
Over
out
the summer.
going
You've then
forward.
got us as fans going, he got it wrong. He actually got it wrong. Like
Definitely.
when you think about it, we've basically abandoned Premier League games and points to focus on the Europa League. He's told us that. Quite rightly. I thought it was the right thing to do, but we've literally basically ignored bad Premier League performances because the Europa League is all that matters. That's absolutely fine if you win it. But, what a shame that Lyon result, I'll never talk about it again.
Definitely.
It's
That
dead. Doesn't mean
I feel like
anything.
that's the
What a
most
shame that this whole
painful
Premier
thing.
League season and all these bad losses
That Leon game is
contributed
never
to
going to be talked
nothing.
about again because
And
it
that,
means
I think, I just
absolutely
look at
nothing
last
now.
night with Amrim and I go, I want him to do well. He will be the manager. And look, Sir Alex Ferguson had some low points in the early days. It doesn't mean he won't be successful, but I think he's coming from a very difficult position now. The media are going to be gunning for him. And I think he's lost something in the fan base and within the players after last night that, it's going to be very interesting. I want him to do well. I really do. And on top of that, he's going to be the first Manchester United manager that doesn't get proper backing. I mean, I think about Mourinho's
Yeah.
first summer,
As
Zlatan,
I think I mentioned
Pog.
this. I mentioned this as well. Started the stream. Financially, United are screwed. Financially, I think they're going to have to sell players. They're going to have to sell a stupid amount of players to even get, quality players that are going to come to the club. And how many players are going to want to come to a club that isn't playing in the Champions League? Like the Champions League, it's going to be interesting next season. Real Madrid are fortifying their team. Barcelona would want to have a comeback next season. Whoever wins the Champions League this year is gonna want to win it again next season. Like you're gonna want to have um they're gonna want to make a statement next season. You know, new teams are coming into the Champions League. They're gonna be difficult. So the Champions League is where it's at next season. Excuse me. The Champions League is where it's at next season. And if you're not in it, if you're not in the Champions League, you have this you lose this attractability that players will definitely look at when they're moving to a new team next season. So I think even if Manchester United do sell players, who are they going to buy? Who is going to be interested to come to Manchester United? I mean, obviously United is such a big club that even if they're not in the Champions League, teams or so people are still going to be interested to come to the club. But if a Tottenham Hotspur come, are chasing the same target that Manchester United are chasing, you would think that Tottenham would be able to get that player ahead of Manchester United because they're in the Champions League. You know, so it's very telling. It's very telling for Manchester United, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things go on from here with Ruben Amorim in relation to transfers. It really is. I think Cunha is a done deal for Manchester United. I think the lap as well is going to be a done deal. But who's next? Who's next in terms of transfers? Who's going to be next? Who's going to be the next player that Manchester United go in for or get linked to? Because Gyökeres is gone to Arsenal. Unless Manchester United can pull up a miracle and provide, a very attractive package to Victor Gyökeres, he is gone to Liverpool. Not Liverpool. He's gone to Arsenal, and everyone is getting fortified. Everyone is getting fortified. So yeah, I think financially United are in
But you
uh,
think
uh,
about Ten Hag's
yeah,
first
they've got
summer,
big problems. They've got big
Casemiro,
problems.
Martinez, some really big players. Same with Ollie. What's his first summer going to be? All right, Cunha, but like he needs more. He needs a lot more. But look, is it the beginning of the end for Amrim? If I had to choose yes or no, I would say yes. I think the momentum of this season is going to carry on into next season as soon as we get some bad results. And people talk about, oh, not being in the Champions League means that we can focus on Premier League games. But just imagine this. You're playing Arsenal in mid-September. You've only taken 7 points from your first 12. You play Arsenal in mid-September. You lose. Okay, so you've got 7 points from 15. And then you don't play for another week. And that whole week, people think it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. There is going to be so much scrutiny on this team. So much scrutiny. And we're Manchester United. It's not like, oh, we're playing, we're playing on a Sunday and then the next game's on a Saturday, but we're not playing in Europe.
I think we're gonna wrap it up here, but to close things off, I think Manchester United next season are going to have to they're gonna have to pull off a banger of a season. Like they're going to have to get at least top I think top I think top six is gonna be a bad season for United. I'm gonna be real with you. I am going to be real with you. With the quality of players United have, I think with the quality of players United have, and with the attention that is on Manchester United, I think top six would probably be a bad season for them. To be very real with you, I think you're gonna have to get top four. You're going to have to get top four to be afforded an opportunity to rebuild. To be given time. Because I look at it now, and the media are definitely gonna be on Manchester United's neck. They're gonna definitely be on them when it gets to, when things are gonna go bad. And yeah, I think it's really, really just gonna be a problem for them. I think the stream has gone a lot longer than I thought it was gonna be. We're 57 minutes in, and yeah, it's been a great one. I mean, great questions coming in from the chat. Really, really appreciated that. Appreciate all the support. I mean, wonderful questions. I hope I've provided some good questions. Let me know what you think in the comment section below as well. If you are not joining or watching this live, I will do my best to, try and answer the questions as well. And, if it's very interesting, maybe, you never know, you do get featured in the next video when we do talk about some more general football topics. Hopefully the next time we meet here is going to be talking about the Champions League final and what's going to be next for next season in relation to football. But yeah, I'll bringing you guys some more football news, some more football conversations. We'll be having about teams, players, transfers, and all of that stuff. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you guys in the next one. And oh yeah, if you wanna catch me live on Twitch, streaming Ark Survival Evolved 100 Days Challenge, we are gonna try and obviously complete and beat Ark Survival Evolved in 100 days. I will put the link down in the description below. Later today, later in the evening, we'll be doing that to complete. We started a while ago, but I haven't been able to get time to complete and continue it, but we're going to be continuing it today. So link in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in. Stay safe out there. Peace.